How's it going, man?
I'm good. I'm good. How about you? Where are you?
We're based in Lisbon, Portugal. Have you heard of it?
I have. It must be late for you guys.
It's it's 10 at night in the evening. Yeah. It's all right,
right,
man.
cool.
We're night guys. We're working into the night anyway. Before anything, I would like to know if you could show us this room that you're in with all the fantastic guitars and explain a bit what's it all about, basically, what's in that room.
Yeah, totally. So right now, we're at the DAngelico showroom in New York. So this is the space. We've essentially we built this space about 8 years ago. And it's really supposed to be a tribute to the history and legacy of our brand. You can check out some additional photos of the showroom online, and it's a great space. It's basically what we consider to be our headquarters, and where lots of artists that work with us come and try out gear, and it's totally private, but anybody can make an appointment online to come visit the space, especially in normal times when there's not a raging pandemic in the world. But we are still here and doing what we do, so that's great.
I know there's a lot of artists who have been in that room recording stuff for you guys. You guys are associated to a lot of top end musicians. I know that the brand started in the 1930s. Is that correct?
That's right. So DAngelico was a one-man band for most of his career. Had a couple of notable apprentices that worked with him, actually. But John built his first guitar in 1932. And originally he was, his uncle ran a violin, essentially like a violin and cello,
workshop,
violin and cello workshops, and they were luthiers. And so he learned, he was a kind of a prodigy under them. And by the time I think he was in his teens, he was running, basically he was in charge of that shop, right under his uncle. And he was kind of overseeing all of the different luthiers and craftsmen who worked there. But if you look in the history of the guitar, 1930s was right when I think guitar was coming onto the scene. You had Django Reinhardt, Charlie Christian, all this new U.S. and European jazz music that was happening. And I think, I always kind of think it's like akin to today, like with hip hop music. Like it was old school to make violins and cellos. Like the cool thing to do for a young teenager in New York was to start making guitars, and that's what DAngelico did.
Yeah, man. There's also a relationship between DAngelico and the Crystal, right?
Sure. So DAngelico built his first guitar in 1932. Largely very similar to the Gibson L5. That was his guitar of influence. And as you got into the late 30s and into the early 40s, you started to see the more traditional DAngelico designs come into play. So I have next to me this is a 1936.
Wow, man.
I believe it's a 36 or it's a 38 DAngelico, and you can see it. It looks like a Gibson L5.
Yeah, exactly.
But it has a few DAngelico touches to it. Like you can see, it has this tortoiseshell stair step pickguard, with kind of these Art Deco inlays, which is
amazing,
beautiful. And then you have your an early form of the DAngelico
XL,
headstock.
Okay.
You still had this tailpiece that was this is a Grover tailpiece. He hadn't started doing what's behind me, which is the stair step.
It's a very well-known detail about the DAngelico guitars. You can see like Benson and I think Bucky Pizzarelli, guys that I've seen photos of them with these guitars. That one that you just showed me behind you, is that like his 60s or 70s? Or the
Well,
original?
no, this is a current, this is a one of our current DAngelico's. This was, this is a 2020 XL throwback model, but it definitely calls upon some of the designs that you saw in a little bit of the later period DAngelico's. But to answer your question, DeQuisto actually came into the picture much later in DAngelico's career. So you're looking at like, he started in the shop by I think he was like 14 or 15 years old, sweeping the floors and kind of doing all of the work that nobody wanted to do. And, he later, it's a great story. But to summarize, he, eventually, DAngelico had another apprentice named Vincent DeSario, who was also very talented, but DeSario and DAngelico fell into many disagreements about the direction of what they were doing. And the original DAngelico shop was on Kenmar Street, right here in New York City, just not far from Delancey Street. And they had to vacate the original shop because there was, I believe there was like a mold problem or like a water leakage. I forget what it was. And that kind of timed with DAngelico and DeSario, DAngelico's first apprentice, parting ways. And in secret, Jimmy DeQuisto, this young kid who was just seemingly just sweeping the floors, was actually learning how to make guitars without DAngelico even really knowing. And because DeSario would hand off all his work on those like hot summer days to DeQuisto, and he learned how to do all the work and was naturally more gifted than DeSario. So when DAngelico ended up moving across the street to a smaller spot, but he was getting his health was fading, and he needed a new apprentice, but didn't think anyone was skilled enough to do it. And DeQuisto ended up proving to DAngelico that he was, up for the task. Yeah. And so you only started to see Jimmy DeQuisto's work show up in the guitars in the late 50s, probably like 57, 58, 59. And then once you really get to like the last 4 years of DAngelico's life, from 60 to 64, those are the golden era of DAngelico instruments that combine the work of DAngelico and DeQuisto. And DeQuisto was much more detail oriented in his designs. If you look at a guitar like this, and you take a really close look, you'll actually notice that there's a few things that are sloppy. I think that the spacing of these F holes to the body is not symmetrical. The inlay, some of the inlay work or the binding is not perfect. That was the old school DAngelico Italian way. He was just putting these guitars together, but not quite paying attention to the details like Jimmy DeQuisto did. And that's why those later period DAngelicos had the detail. So if you see, if you DAngelico's and you see, one of those later period, like a 1962 New Yorker, it instantly has this very powerful effect on people. And ultimately it's what the real collectors are looking for. And those are the DAngelicos that you hear the stories that they're, 50, 60, up to $100,000, if not more. Even though that sonically the early and mid period DAngelicos, I think, are right on par. It just, they don't have the detail that DeQuisto brought to the table.
Yeah, amazing. You guys recently released what's it called? I think it's a master builder, yeah? New York master builder.
So yeah, we were doing a lot of master built guitars here in New York. In the early years of our revival, and it's something that I wish we were doing more. But at the end of the day, we haven't been doing it as much in the last couple of years, just because today it's very hard to build handmade guitars, in New York, and be able to build enough of them where you know, it's sustainable, and we don't have to charge people a ton of money for them. And so, you know, what our direction has really been, our mission has, you know, we started a custom shop for some of our solid body designs, because we're able to then bring the level of, you know, these are handmade instruments, but they're not, you know, they don't quite take the amount of time a proper archtop.
Yeah, because these
takes.
master builders are the high end, right, of your ensemble, right?
They are, and you know, they're just, you know, you talk to any skilled luthier who builds hollow body guitars, you understand that these guitars take so much time to make. And,
how much? Actually, that's the question I was going to ask you. Is how long does it take to make like one of these master builders, for example?
You know, when we've done master builders, they've taken a year, if
Oh my God.
Almost a year and a half, because, you know, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it right. I mean, we're gonna hand carve everything. You know, you have to sand down all the wood. You have to wrap. You know, and you're not dealing with laminated wood. You're dealing with solid. You know, often European sourced wood, and to bend that wood and to create the arch and put it all together and intonate it, and, you know, do the finish it. It's a grueling process. And, you know, I really, when I working in this business, I've really learned to have a new respect for luthiers who build hollow body guitars, because it is extremely difficult to do. And DAngelico is the you know, the godfather of that. Every guitar builder, especially archtop makers, you know, often cite DAngelico as the number one influence.
What about these? I guess I don't know if that's the term, but low end guitars. You know, the cheaper, the more affordable guitars. For you, which is like the perfect example of a cheap, more accessible guitar, but still does a really good job, and it's, you know, pretty well finished and has all the, you know, as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think, you know, when you're comparing our production line guitars to, you know, a $25,000 original DAngelico, you know, I think a word like cheap, you know, could be used. But, you know, some of our production line hollow bodies, you know, to most people are still, we try to find the right balance, where it's an accessible price point, but it's also not something that's, you know, really actually cheap, you know. That's you know, like Mark Whitfield, a great example. Someone that, you know, gigs frequently with one of our, you know, production line DAngelicos. I mean, you know, if I'm going to let me pull this one here. You know, this is our XL EXL1 model.
It's amazing.
And, you know, our goal with this model, we're not trying to replicate what DAngelico has done. I think there's a lot of nomenclature online that, you know, says we're trying to build, you know, probably what's seen as the Stradivarius of guitars. What our goal is with the instrument like this, you know, this instrument we would retail for about, you know, $1,600 or $1,700, is we want to take as many features from those old instruments, both aesthetic and structural features, and give the average person the opportunity to connect with the legacy of John DAngelico and enjoy what he has done. You know, when I've gotten to meet many people who have, you know, met John DAngelico that are still alive to talk about it. And, you know, these are people, if you, an original DAngelico back in the day was about it could have been $150, you know, maybe $200, $300, $400, depending on what year. You know, that is pretty similar to what we charge. If you take the inflation and you say, what was $200 in 1945, and put it in today's metrics, I've done these
pretty
calculations.
Close, yeah, probably. Yeah.
It's pretty close to what you get with like a $1,700 guitar today. It's not exact, so people might in the comments, call me out on that one. But but the idea is that anybody should be able, anybody who's willing to, anybody who wants to experience the DAngelico brand, has an opportunity to in one of our instruments. And something like this, you're looking at, you have your 17-inch wide. We took the exact mold.
It shines so much, man. It's like
right.
It's incredible.
It's it's your 17-inch wide. This is an exact mold of an old DAngelico XL. You have your mother of pearl inlays. You have your tortoiseshell stair step pickguard. This is a custom shop Seymour Duncan floating pickup. So this is something that DAngelico wouldn't have had access to back in the day. This is a more modern pickup, but it's it's really great. And then you're gonna have your classic DAngelico headstock with your skyscraper test rod cover. Man. And we try to make the construction as thin as possible, so it has that great so it still has a great acoustic sound, and it really lets you appreciate the history of our brand, and it has gotten more people, I think, to explore some of the older DAngelicos as well.
Well, when we started coming into the 70s and 80s, did the brand have to kind of adjust itself, or would you say, or not really, when you think about the rock era and
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. DAngelico actually was more or less extinct. Once DAngelico died in 1964, there was a few years where DeQuisto was still building in New York City, but eventually started his own pursuit as his own builder and moved out into Long Island. And there was a lot of problems with the trademark of who had the rights to DAngelico. DeQuisto had sold the rights to a lawyer, and then I believe the lawyer died in a car crash, and somebody else ended up with it. And there was a lot of back and forth of who had the rights to build under DAngelico. Eventually the trademark came under a company called GHS, which they make strings, and they were really invested in building the DAngelico strings line. And those were great strings. I mean, you had Neil Young used those old DAngelico strings. The strings we actually make today are very, very similar to those strings.
Okay.
They ended up outsourcing. They ended up hiring a company in Japan called Vestax, which is like a consumer electronics brand out in Tokyo, or somewhere in Japan. And they had a factory. Vestax had a factory make DAngelicos there, starting probably in the late 70s, 80s, 90s, around then. This was before we came into the brand ourselves. And those are very, nice instruments. There's definitely like a culty community of people online who like to collect them. You had artists, like Kurt Rosenwinkel, or even George Benson, and many others actually playing the Vestax DAngelicos. There were certainly nice guitars, but the way that they eventually GHS sold the brand to us, and so we were able to we have the rights to DAngelico in the United States, and all around the world, and we were only very recently able to get the trademark in Japan. Vestax had went out of business, and which is exciting because we might be able to do some more work in Japan. But really our focus has been in the last 10 years as we've really come into this brand. We're a very new company. It's only this iteration of DAngelico is only 10 years old, and what we're trying to do is take all the history of our brand and build out a really respectable product line. that is suited for guitarists today. So we includes like more nostalgic models like what I just showed you, but also stuff like above me, like solid bodies and semi-hollow bodies, and people have to remember that when DAngelico was making these guitars in 1940s and the 1950s, these musicians, Bucky Pizzarelli, Johnny Smith, John Pisani, these guys were session musicians.
Yep.
A lot of the times, and the guitars in the 1945, that you needed was an archtop.
Yep.
They didn't have coil splitting humbuckers back then, and so today the demands of a guitarist, I mean, I see you in your studio there and you got all this fancy stuff. Like you're gonna want something that could throw some fucking distortion on there and get a single coil tone. Or
well, I'm actually personally, I'm old school. I love jazz guitars, man. You know what I mean? But it makes sense for a lot of the contemporary music, even even if we're talking about R&B, soul, funk. It does tend to be a bit more grudgy. You know what I mean? Smaller guitars, and even all the way now we've got so much even like hard rock or metal. You know what I mean? Obviously, the people are looking for different stuff. I'm an old school guy. You know what I mean? I love that old school jazz guitar.
I like a good old soul. I mean, I'm one as well. And at the end of the day, the archtop, there's nothing better than a great, hollow body guitar. I think it is the ultimate guitar out there. But it's been so cool to work with so many different artists today who are doing, they're producers for hip hop records. They're session musicians. They're more experimental jazz musicians, indie rock bands. We have something for everybody, and that's what's really important to us. And I think to keep the DAngelico name alive, we need to keep up with the times.
Yeah, definitely. Makes sense. What about you? Tell me a bit about yourself. How did you? Because I didn't even know you were. To be honest, I didn't know you were a guitarist. The little bit you played for me, you're obviously you know what the hell you're doing. So you're a musician, and how did you come in contact with DAngelico? How do you?
Well, let me just clear something up. Those are the only 5 chords I know, and I only play them on interviews. So I actually don't play guitar at all. I came into DAngelico when I was a teenager, and my high school music teacher was a great New York jazz guitarist named Joe Carbone. Looked like he was in the mafia. He was about 5 feet tall.
The name says it all.
He was about 5 feet tall, wore a pinky ring, a suit, a custom tailored suit, a Borsalino hat, cufflinks, and leather handmade shoes. And he taught music at my high school. And you had to, in order to get his knowledge, you had to take his things from his car in the morning, get him coffee, fill up the water cooler in the music department. You had to basically be part of his little mafia at school. And when you heard him play the guitar, it was like the most unbelievable thing for a young. He was best friends with Joe Pass. And Joe Pass had died at this time, but to know to be 15 years old and meet somebody like that had that history, and you heard him play the guitar, I would do anything for this man to get that knowledge. And I was, I prided myself on being, doing whatever he needed so that he can teach me or show me more things. And one day after, I was probably about 16 years old, he said, Jay, come over here. I gotta show you something. And I said, well, Bone, what is it? What do you got to show me? He opens the closet. It's his closet he has in his office. It's always locked. I've never seen it open. He opens the closet, and there's this old beat up leather case. And he opens the closet, and out in the guitar is a DAngelico from 1934. And he said, play this guitar. And I played the guitar, and for a 15 or 16-year-old kid to play something like that was really life-changing. And DAngelico from that moment on was an extremely important thing for me. And I had, we just lost Joe Carbone in November. He unfortunately passed away, which has been very, sad for me, losing a mentor. I'm sure people out there could relate to that experience. But what's very, cool is that now, years after I graduated college, probably 5 years after that experience, that I played that first DAngelico guitar, I saw the brand coming back, and it was very important to me that, I had this opportunity to be a part of something that tied all the way back to my childhood and to Carbone. And I know when he saw me working here, he was very proud. And I think, for some of these old, great, what we call dinosaurs, seeing the DAngelico brand flourish today, I think it's a controversial thing, but I think a lot of them really respect what we're doing. And, I know it made him very proud. And, unfortunately we lost him just a few months ago, but it's cool to be able to be involved in something that has a more moral, kind of deeper meaning for me, and that's really great.
So you did you study music in college, or?
Yeah, I pursued music. I was a double major in music and economics in college. I went to Wesleyan, and I played a fair amount of jazz guitar. That was my thing, and it was a great school. And I was really looking for that job out of college that could really balance, okay, I want to play music or be around music, but I also, want to work for an emerging business. And I've now been here almost 5 years, and it's been really a treat to work for this company, and the whole team here is incredible.
Cool, man. About the brand, so what's next for you guys? Is there any new models coming out? Anything so we can have an idea what's happening now in 2021 with you guys?
Yeah, totally, man. We have, we just previewed all of our new 2021 products. You can check them out on our website. NAMM wasn't a reality this year, but we did a virtual launch with a lot of these guitars. They're available for pre-order now. I can actually go and I'll go grab one of them that I really like. Hold on.
Well, man, thanks. That'd be amazing.
So this is our.
Oh yeah, I saw that one. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I think I saw some similar to that one on YouTube. That color is really beautiful. It's amazing.
This is our new XL59. The 59 was around for a while, but we relaunched and redesigned it. This is actually a great example of like an old school design that's been modernized.
Yeah.
DAngelico actually built a famous guitar in 1959 that had P90s, and it was like, it was one of his first experiences building with, pickups. Most of his guitars were just acoustic guitars.
Yeah.
And we've now modernized this guitar, so it's thinner. It's like thin like a semi-hollow body, but still hollow on the inside. These are custom Seymour Duncan, we call these Great Dane P90s, which is kind of like your 40s Charlie Christian wiring.
Oh, okay.
Great for old school jazz. But I've sent this guitar to a few great indie rock musicians, blues musicians. The P90s are just such a great pickup because they can play so many different roles. I mean, when you get on this bridge P90 and you put like a slapback delay or something, and like out of an old amp, it's just like you can play slide on it. I mean, it's killing. Wow. And this guitar really summarizes what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to we're trying to take these great designs from DAngelico, but create guitars that are super relevant to
today. Yeah.
And this is a guitar that's it's about $2,000 US MAP, which we think it's a great for what you get. It's a really great price point that I think is still very accessible, especially to kind of more intermediate and advanced musicians that are looking for, you know, a really cool guitar. And this has an ebony fingerboard. It's got your inlays. It's got, these are the you know, same Grover Imperial style tuners that you see on old DAngelicos, and yeah.
Wow, man.
So this is something that's quite a departure from what we've been showing you guys in this video. This is the last guitar I ever thought I would be excited about when I started working at this company, you know, several years ago. But it is probably the most, it's probably the guitar I'm most proud of and excited about now. This is our Bedford SH solid body. You know, a few things to note about this guitar that are very cool is, you know, this is a proprietary body shape. You know, we take a lot of pride in with our solid body line to create these body shapes that are, you know, unique and proprietary to our brand. And, you know, it took many years of product development work by our team to, you know, that they do an amazing job to nail these designs. You know, you have on all of our solid bodies, you have these F-hole style pick guards. This is kind of a nod to that Art Deco New York kind of design. That I think across the solid body line, like, this is a standout aesthetic that people really like. Diving into the guitar specifically, this is a very unique pickup configuration that I think checks a lot of boxes. These are Telecaster style single coils, made by Seymour Duncan. They're called Seymour Duncan 5.2s for the real nerds out there. And then you have this vintage mini humbucker by Seymour Duncan in the bridge. And for those of you who don't know, Seymour Duncan, they wire pickups in Santa Barbara. They are, you know, industry legends, and we started working with them about, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, and the collaborations that we've made on some of these pickups are just you know, super incredible. And you know, I just wanted to give them a shout out. But, you know, you have this 5-way kind of Strat style blade, and when you blend these pickups, you know, you really get very unique sounds.
That's what I'm saying.
If you're a jazz musician and you kind of want that, like, Ted Green, Ed Bickert, like, you know, Telecaster neck pickup tone, you know, you're right here. If you want to get a little more, you know, Stratocaster vibe, you know, I probably shouldn't be saying Telecaster and Stratocaster so much, but, you know, screw the haters. This is how I think about things. You have this blend, so you're on position now. You know, if this is that was position 5, now you're in position 4. Now, what's really cool is when you start getting this mini humbucker in, because mini humbuckers are actually what you see on a lot of arch tops, but when you put them in a solid body, they have this, like, great balance between a single coil and a humbucker. And I think a lot of complaints I've heard over the years from Stratocasters and Telecasters, or I should just say Stratocasters, is not having enough power in the bridge pickup and wanting something that's more explosive and special. So, you know, these are you know, kind of pickups you'd expect to see, but they're combined in a very unique way that I think, you know, whether you are a jazz musician or you're playing, you know, rock or blues or R&B, you have, with this 5-way blade, you can get some incredible tones. And I want to just point out this F-hole pick guard right here. You know, this is our way to kind of bring in a lot of that DAngelico kind of semi-hollow body and arch top flavor into these instruments. You know, something that's always been a problem for me with, you see, like, chambered tellies or other, you know, F-hole, you know, solid bodies, is like, you look at the guitar, you pick it up, and you're like, wait a second, like, this doesn't do anything to the sound. You know, it doesn't take up enough real estate to, like, affect it. If you actually took this guitar and you, like, looked inside the body, you would see that this whole, you know, quadrant of the guitar is hollow. And when you combine that, when you amplify the instrument, that acoustic sound gets funneled into the tone of what you're playing, and it gives you that, like, any arch top guitar player would know. It's like, the beauty of playing an arch top is, like, it kicks back at you, you know, and you feel like you're interacting with the instrument. And putting that into a solid body and being a little bit more aggressive with the design in that regard is I think is something that's, in addition to the pickup and configuration is really innovative and super neat. And then you have this. This is across all of the solid bodies. This is a satin finish neck that's set. I think a set neck is great for stability and resonance, and I can go on and on. But I just love how we do this.
So the neck, is it like it's not exactly the same as the original DAngelico guitar? It's slightly thinner, right? The neck.
Well,
of the guitar?
no. I mean, these are 1 11/16. I have a 1949 XL that it's also 1 11/16.
Okay.
In terms of the net width, but you have to remember that with the original DAngelicos, he built them on order. So it's not like he just said, "Oh, I'm gonna go build 10 guitars with the same specs." He was building these guitars because somebody ordered them. So you see DAngelicos with all different kinds of necks, different neck radiuses. I mean, he built from the radiuses with 9-inch fingerboards, 12-inch fingerboards. I think he built some with 14-inch fingerboards, C-shaped necks, D-shaped necks, pre-war necks. Early period DAngelicos didn't have truss rods because Gibson had the patent to the truss rod. Later period DAngelicos had truss rods. That's what's so cool. No two original DAngelicos are alike. So you go, constantly at the company, we're looking at these photos of these old guitars and we're finding these little details. That's like, wow, look what did he do here? And how could we take this detail and apply it to a design we're working on now?
Yeah.
That I think, it will take a brand 300 years to, really understand some of these designs that DAngelico was making, and the tons of ways you can apply them, and it's too much fun. I can talk about it all day.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's also what gives those guitars personality, right? Is the fact that a lot of these guitars, they have their own little details and specificities and stuff. That's the beautiful thing about it.
And it's amazing. I mean, I think even with our instruments, today, we had I had Russell Malone come by. I'm sure you know Russell.
Yeah.
Good friend of Mark's, and he came by the first time, but probably maybe it was
trying to get him on the show, man.
Oh yeah, good luck with that. He came by the showroom, and I had about maybe it was 6 or 7 of the exact same guitar and the exact same. It was actually the EX01 and the Sunburst I showed you.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. There's a video on YouTube of Mark and Russell playing that model. I think both of them playing the same model with just a slight difference to them. There's this 15-year-old video of them in some nightclub. They're both with the same guitar, man. Almost the same.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I had about 7 guitars for Russell to try. Exactly the same. The specs were the same, everything. But he found little differences in each one. The neck felt a little slimmer on this one. The tone resonated a little more on this one. And I think with, any good guitar, really any guitar at all, but especially good guitars, you start to notice that they take on their own personality, and that if I handed you 2 of these exactly the same, you would find that one sounds considerably different than the other, and that's what I think is so special about guitars. Something our tech here always says, Robert, is that you go out into the forest, right, and you look at all trees, right? Could be the same species of tree, but look at the variance between each tree.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, well, I never thought about that, but yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
What if one tree, was behind a mountain and didn't get the same amount of sunlight as another tree, or or one grew a lot more branches and whatever. If you realize that, and you realize that every guitar is likely made from a different tree, how could you possibly have a guitar that sounds exactly the same every time? There is going to be some difference, and trees, remember, are wood at one point was a living organism.
Yeah.
I still believe it's a living organism, even when it's on a guitar, and therefore it has its own unique, tonal characteristics, even if it's this exact same species of wood. So,
I mean, that's fantastic. I want to thank you so much, Justin, for doing this. Hopefully, we can do this regularly when you have a new guitar, man. That's what we would like to do. Every time you have a new guitar out, if we could do a little video, man, that would be great. I mean,
hey, well, that's great, and big shouts out to Mark Whitfield, and
yeah, thank you so much, Mark.
Putting us together, and every time we have a new guitar, I usually send him one to try. So
yeah,
he'll be a lot better than me at showing you how they sound. But
no, man, don't say that.
But yeah, that would be great. We'll stay in touch. It'll be fun.
Justin, before we go, could you just repeat this phrase for me for our program?
Yes.
So, hi, I'm Justin Friedman, and you're watching In the Pocket with the Brothers.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Justin. I'm the Director of Artist Relations over at DAngelico Guitars, and I'm here with In the Pocket with the Brothers.
Yeah, man.
Hell yeah.
Justin,
Great.
man, fantastic, man. Great to meet you, man.
Thank you, guys. Likewise. We'll talk soon.
Very nice of you.
Peace, guys.
Great
Alrighty,
stuff.
man.
We loved it.
You got it.
Thank you so much,
Peace.
man. Hey guys, if you want to see more content like this, don't.
Hi guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. So, yeah, do it again. Hey guys, if you subscribe to this channel, okay.